Module 3, Fearsome Fighter Food Stockpiling. 72 hours. That's all the time you have. It might be a hurricane barreling down in your region. It could be a nor'easter, a massive blizzard zeroing in on your city, and may even be the strident threat of an impending military attack. The cause really doesn't matter. The point is, you have 3 days to stockpile food. Tick, tick, tick. The clock is counting down. Where do you turn to accrue the most amount of food in the least amount of time? The quickest and easiest place to start is right under your nose, your local grocery store. While this may be the fastest way to fill your pantry, it can also be a deceiving activity as well. Think back to the last time a natural disaster threatened a region. You might have watched the throngs of people shopping at a grocery store, or perhaps you were at the store yourself when individuals were in a stockpiling frenzy. I call it a frenzy because usually that's exactly what occurs at a grocery store 3 days or less before a storm. People are buying up lots of foodstuffs. Usually, though, they haven't put much thought into what they are buying. They walk out of the store with a good deal of food, but with far too many items that are perishable. This shopping trip won't be quite like your ordinary weekly expedition. You'll be buying with an eye to foods that will last for a while on your pantry shelf. And you don't really want to spend any more time in the store than you absolutely have to. So prepare your list of foods based on your family's preferences right now. If you want to save even more time, take another 10 minutes and use this trick. Once you have the list of non-perishable foods that you know your family will eat, then write down the list again. This time, you're going to write them in order of their placement in the store. Visualize your local grocery store. Better yet, some stores actually have maps that will help direct the shopper to the areas and foods. If your store has one, then get it on your next trip so you can use it when planning your stockpile buying. A shopping trip with a twist. When you make this excursion, you're going to view your store from a slightly different perspective. You might be familiar with the floor plan of the grocery store, but you may have never really given it much thought. All the fresh produce, meat, and much of the frozen food section are located around the perimeters of the store. Usually, these are the areas you shop, but this time, you're going to avoid them and dig into the deeper parts, into the inner aisles of the store. If your store offers a floor plan, look at it now. You'll see how true this statement is. This is where you'll find canned foods, packaged meals, pasta, sauces, and other foods with a longer shelf life. These are the foods you're going to stock up on. Buy canned vegetables, fruits, and other food that your family likes. Think bulk. An alternative to going to your local grocery store is a membership store like Costco, Sam's Club, or BJ's. If you have one close to you, this is the ideal way to quickly and easily stockpile, and it is far more economical. In some ways, these stores are set up perfectly for your mission. Buying in bulk is the perfect answer. It should take you only one trip to stockpile enough food for you to withstand a short-term disaster. Order online. Order online with only 3 days? It can be done, but you have to stipulate you want expedited or rush shipping. This will cost extra, of course, but you'll be assured of having the foodstuffs on hand without the hassle of battling any stores. While you're online, don't overlook a veritable staple of the traditional food stockpile: ready-to-eat emergency rations. Granted, these may not taste like grandma's home cooking, but they will do exactly what their name implies. They will provide you with nutritional substance during the emergency. If you have a large outdoor supply store in your area, you can find ready-to-eat meals there as well. You'll find them in one or all of 3 ways: cans, vacuum-sealed pouches, or foil packs. There's an extra perk to buying your food this way, and that's their shelf life, 10 years or more. These items are pre-packaged for you in individual serving sizes and are specifically created for emergencies. When you think of these, the most familiar thought might be the government rations for soldiers. They are both convenient and long-lasting, and they take up much less space on shelves, making them easier to stash away out of sight. Imagine, with just one trip or one click, you can have your shelves stocked quickly and with peace of mind knowing that your family is also receiving their nutrients. While technically we're talking quote-unquote food, we're also including water. Don't forget to stockpile water. The human body can survive longer without food than without water. Whether you're buying your supplies at the grocery store or a big box store, you'll want to buy a sufficient amount of water as well. The rule of thumb is that you'll need a gallon of water per day per person. So, if you have a family of 4, 8 gallons of water will last approximately 2 days. With only 72 hours to accumulate this, the quickest way to acquire it is through your local grocery store. You can buy your water in either individual bottles of 500 milliliters, or you can get it in gallons, or both. Covert food storage tactics. How to keep your food from spoiling or being easily found by looters. Imagine this scenario. You've had your stash of food for quite a while. So long, you can't really say. The blizzard of the century arrives and effectively prevents you from going out to buy food. You don't panic because you've been stockpiling food for some time, and now is the time to start digging into the supplies. But when you get to it, you notice that someone, or more appropriately something, has already claimed ownership of some of the foods. You have bugs in your flour supply for starters. Not only would you be disappointed, but you would also be very hungry. So is it impossible to store food long term without having small friends feasting on it before you? Absolutely not. Actually, it's not a problem at all if you know some of the secrets of those who are veterans at preparedness. Or consider this fictional scenario that may someday morph into reality. You have your cache of food stored in various locales within your house, but you really don't try and hide your activity. That means when the plumber comes or friends visit, depending on where in the house they go, they may have a full view of your food. What would happen, hypothetically speaking, should an emergency arise and these individuals who snatched a view of your pile were caught unaware? If the emergency were serious enough and long enough, do you think they may be tempted to come by and help themselves? Or, if not them, perhaps they may have mentioned it to someone else. It may not take long before people are thinking of ways of looting your emergency pantry. Let's face it, it's not that you wouldn't want to feed everyone who knocks at your door, but you only have a limited quantity of food. These are times for hard choices. The choice in this instance is clear. You need to feed your family first. Right now, you may not think that covert stockpiling is necessary. It may very well go against everything you've ever learned, but should that time hit, you'll be glad you did. Take a look around your house. As you may have already guessed, you're surveying your home with an eye to 2 factors. The first is how to keep those small critters out of your food. The second is your goal of keeping the larger critters, that is, other people, out. Let's start with the smaller guys first. Every preparedness expert agrees that the best place to store your food is in a location that's dry, cool, and dark. Ideally, you're looking for areas, and more than one would be great, we'll talk about that later, in which the temperature doesn't rise much higher than 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Should you not be able to find a year-round cool place, then you can rotate your supply regularly to ensure their quality. In this way, no stash spends a lengthy time in potentially damaging extensive heat. It's also imperative that you keep this emergency reserve dry. Many individuals prefer to store their foodstuffs in the basement. Before you do so, though, acquire a few pallets on which you can place the food. This keeps them several inches off the floor to ensure proper air circulation as well. The only criterion for storage that's left to talk about is light. Keeping foodstuffs like cooking oil out of light is vital. This becomes even more important if you store any products in what are known as PETE bottles. These containers are amazingly effective when you use them with oxygen absorber packets. They not only help preserve the nutritional value and taste of your food, but they help to keep the insects out as well. Before you use any oxygen absorber packets, however, read as much as you can about the proper way to use them. Most instructions will explain that your food must be dry, which means usually that they contain 10% or less moisture content. Keeping your cache out of sight. As we mentioned earlier, this might be the most difficult part of food stockpiling, keeping the food out of sight from non-family members. So where do you store your food and water? There's no easy answer to this question. There's no one location recommendation that works for everyone. You'll have to take many factors into consideration, all wrapped around your individual living situation. Here are several of the more common places others have stored food and water. You can look this list over to see if any of these locations work for you. You can also adapt one of them to suit your specific needs. Keep in mind, though, that you will need to be able to access this food as quickly as possible should an emergency occur. Food under the stairs. How many of you remember your parents storing seasonal items like Christmas decorations under your basement stairs? This was a logical place since it didn't take up needed floor space in the basement and no one could tell it was there. Maybe you have a space under your stairs that can be converted into a food storage area. This would be an ideal location because even when people visit, they wouldn't be able to see your food. It would be easy to build several shelves to hold the varying sizes of cans, jars, bottles, and even plastic containers of food. Storing your stash in the garage. This may work for some families, but there are some qualifications that need to be taken into consideration before you can commit to this spot. First, you'll want to make sure that you can store the food so it isn't in plain view. If you have an old steel cabinet, that would work nicely. You may also want to build or buy some type of cabinetry if your garage is large enough. While the food would be sitting out there, very few people would even consider going through your cabinets. Another consideration for garage storage is the fluctuation in temperature. If you live in an area where it gets ridiculously cold in the winter and insanely hot in the summer, the garage would not work. If you don't think these fluctuations would make that difference, chew on this. The nutritional value of food lasts about 50% longer when it's kept away from the extreme spectrum of temperature. Got a utility room? You've got yourself storage space. If your house has a utility room where you can use your washer and dryer, you may have just found a perfect food storage location. Shelves can easily be mounted above your washer and dryer to store all the essentials involved in doing the laundry. Now, all you need to do is take a good look around to see where you can stash some food. You can add shelving along any wall. Some rooms even have small closets. The utility room challenges your imagination. If you've never looked at your laundry room as a covert storage room, now's the time to see it in a different way. Hiding the food in plain sight. The magic of kitchen storage. For some people, the most obvious location turns out also to be the least expected. That will be the case should you decide to make room for emergency storage in your kitchen. Visitors seldom actually rummage through your kitchen cabinets, so they'll have no idea of what's behind these doors. Between the different size shelving and the large storage areas in the bottom, you'll be able to hide quite a variety of different sizes of containers in this room. That's no monster under the bed, that's food! Perhaps this is obvious, perhaps not, but many individuals store both food and water under beds. Let's face it, it's highly unlikely that a casual visitor in your house would search out your bedroom, kneel on the floor, and look under your bed for food. They would have quite a bit of explaining to do in this case. For most of us, the space under the bed is empty, except the travels of an occasional dust bunny or two. This makes it the perfect storage area. You're not using it now, so you're not feeling as if you're displacing any other type of storage. Since the height and width of beds vary, you may need to do some investigation to see what types of containers actually fit. Some people use all the beds in their house for storage, using some for water and others for foodstuffs. To ensure that no one accidentally sees it, you can always decorate your bed with a dust ruffle. Now, unless the person is really desperate for food, he won't be going through the trouble of inspecting under your bed. This is just a start of how you can store your food, keep it as fresh and nutritious for as long as possible, and keep it safe from potential looters as well. As you continue to examine your house with an eye to food storage, you'll be able to find all sorts of clever ways to disguise your caches. Wait! What's inside this end table in your living room? And this coffee table? What do you have stashed in there? High nutrition tricks for your stockpile. How to get the healthiest food for your stockpile. Sure, you can stockpile all the food you want, but if you should ever have to live off this, how can you be sure your family is receiving enough nutrients? Your family's nutritional supplies during a disaster may be a bit more demanding than usual. You're no doubt under stress and your body will be requiring more calories and more nutrients. So just how do you stock for nutrition? Your first answer may be that paying attention to nutrition is impossible. After all, your nutrients come for the most part from fresh fruits and vegetables. Storing these, well, is impossible. True for the most part at least, but you may be surprised where good nutrition can be hiding. And it doesn't necessarily have to hang off a tree in fruit form or grow at the end of a plant like a vegetable. Raisins? You've got to be kidding! Let's look, for example, at the humble raisin. Small and very unassuming. But hiding inside that wrinkled skin is a food that packs a singular nutritional wallop that most foods just can't match. They're perfect for your purpose because they're an already dried fruit. They were once grapes. Because of this, they have all the nutrient value and benefits of the grape, only they're smaller. That's not something to overlook when you're stockpiling food and space is at a minimum. They're an excellent source of carbohydrates. Feel free to translate that into energy. They're also rich in iron and vitamin C, as well as a host of antioxidants. Raisins alone can give your stockpile of food a real nutritional shot in the arm. Raisins are a must-have in your emergency preparedness pantry if for no other reason than they are magnificently versatile. Imagine for a moment all the ways your family can enjoy this simple fruit. As a standalone snack, The members of your family can take them directly from the package to their mouths. There may be no nutritionally better snack in the world than a box of raisins, which makes it a remarkable item to have on your shelves. Add to your favorite foods. We've all heard of and probably eaten Raisin Bran. Who says that's the only cereal that can contain this nutritional gem? When you stockpile raisins, you can add them to any cereal to boost its energy-producing level. But don't just stop with cereal. If during a disaster you have other foods that need a nutritional makeover, bring out the raisins. If you're baking at all, add them to cookies, muffins, pancakes. Well, use your imagination. Add to your main meal. Go ahead and experiment. Try putting them in with your meat dishes from pork chops to chicken. It doesn't have to be an elaborate addition. After all, you're cooking in the middle of a disaster. Add those raisins in there to ensure your family gets that nutritional bump. Make a trail mix. Add raisins to your homemade trail mix. You may want to use nuts and seeds and perhaps some breakfast cereal. After all, the cereal is fortified with nutrients. Your body will get tag teamed by the vitamin fortified dry cereal and the small but mighty raisin. You can also include other nutritionally dense foods like almonds and sunflower seeds. Create your personalized trail mix with your family food preferences in mind. If they like the ingredients, they'll want to munch. That means you can rest easy knowing they're getting the nutrition they need during this stressful period. More superfoods to stockpile. What about the Rodney Dangerfield of superfoods? You know, the one that doesn't get any respect. That would be peanut butter. Most adults view it as a child's food, but forget why parents have no argument about allowing their children to eat it. Yes, the answer can be found in one word: nutrition. Peanut butter is an excellent source of iron as well as carbohydrates. It's also a versatile food. You can bake it into cookies, eat them in sandwiches, or even create a delicious peanut sauce for your dinner entrees. You can even put them on apples and munch them as a snack. What kid and adult can't eat peanut butter straight from the jar? Another benefit to peanut butter is its general perception as being a comfort food. Many adults grew up on peanut butter, and today, just as many children it is. There's nothing more comforting than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. When everyone around you and your family is in turmoil, it's nice to be able to offer something that is not only highly nutritious, but is also comforting. Stock up on the rice, but not the kind you think. Stocking up on rice is probably a no-brainer. After all, it stores incredibly well and has great nutritional content. But before you go out and buy that rice, why not think about brown rice instead of white? Sure, it doesn't have quite the shelf life the white variety does, but it does contain more nutrients. In fact, it's considered a complete food. It contains virtually all the nutrition the human body needs to survive, and it does last up to 5 years. If you rotate the foods in your stockpile periodically, this shelf life should serve you just fine. 3 surprise superfoods for your pantry. That's right. As you're preparing your emergency supply of food, you may have either overlooked these or completely dismissed them as not being suitable for long-term storage. Take a second look at the apple in your refrigerator. You may have already reconciled yourself that you'll have to kiss that apple a day goodbye if you encounter an emergency. Think again. It may surprise you to learn that apples can be stored for months under the right conditions. The best apples to choose for your long-term food facility is a tart one with a thick skin. But there's a trick to keeping this fruit full of flavor and its nutritional content high. You'll want to wrap each apple individually in newspaper and then store them in a cardboard box. This way, you can have fresh apples, which go well with peanut butter, by the way, even in a disaster. The next surprise superfood you'll want to consider buying is the carrot. These are extremely hardy if you don't wash them, and you can store them in sand or even mulch. You'll want to keep them in a dark, cool area that gets plenty of ventilation. Think about it. Carrots grow underground. They feel perfectly at home in this situation. The carrot will last for a good 6 months in this manner. While that may not sound so long compared to some of the decades other foods last, you'll be grateful to have them on hand even this long. The incredible edible egg. No, you're saying right now, there's no way I can keep eggs in an emergency food pantry. Yes, there is. Of course, there are a few simple storage tricks you need to know. First, you need to buy fresh-range free eggs directly from the farmer. At one time, that directive may have seemed impossible to fulfill, but not anymore. There's a definite resurgence in the raising of chickens for their eggs. Eggs bought directly from farmers can be, depending on what they feed them, organic. Without a doubt, they also have an enhanced nutritional value compared to what you'd buy in the store. The trick to storing them is not to wash them. These farm fresh eggs contain an outer coating called a bloom. It naturally protects them from spoiling and any type of contamination. In fact, fresh eggs can be stored up to a year in a refrigerator. Knowing this, it may be worth your trouble to find fresh eggs and begin buying them regularly. You can rotate them occasionally in order to always have an edible and, yes, incredible supply on hand. 30-day stockpile blueprint, an easy 7-step method for acquiring your stockpile. You're considering stockpiling food, but you've never done it before. Just the thought of it can be overwhelming. Of course, it doesn't help that a friend just showed you his awesome stockpile. Enough food to feed his family for 30 days. How did he do that? If you want to have the same peace of mind, here's a blueprint you can follow to start to grow your reserve of emergency food and water. It's a step-by-step set of instructions that takes all the confusion out of accumulating your stockpile. You'll also be pleased to know it's as easy as, well, 1, 2, 3. Step 1. Define exactly how many individuals you're stockpiling food for. Most individuals create an emergency stash for their immediate family, the individuals currently living in their home. Before you decide you want to include Uncle George, Aunt Bernie, and the elderly lady across the street, you need to come to a realization about the amount of food you'll need. To get a realistic estimate about the quantity of food you'll need, start with calculating the amount of food you would need to collect for those only living in your home. You may decide that's a large enough project to undertake. Step 2. Make a list of the foods your family eats. It will do no good to buy food your family doesn't eat. Then you're storing a mass of food that is not only taking up space, but your family wouldn't even touch if it were the last food on Earth. Step 3. Decide how large of a stockpile you're amassing. You may want to begin stockpiling for a relatively short period of time. Many individuals collect enough food and water to sustain them for a month. Others choose 3 months or longer. Before you decide, think hard about why you're stockpiling. Are you waiting for those zombies to conquer the living? If so, you'll need enough food to last for a very long time. If, however, you're thinking more immediate needs, like a large storm that prevents you from leaving your home, you can be more moderate in how much food you stockpile. If this whole process intimidates you or you're on a tight budget, as many of us are, you may want to start out with just stashing away 2 weeks worth of food. You can always add to that later. Step 4. Calculate your food needs. If you're not sure how much food your family will eat in the day during an emergency, visit this website, Ready Nutrition. It also contains a food calculator. You put in the number of people you're feeding, broken down into adults and children, and it will not only tell you how much to buy, but it'll give you a good idea of what to buy as well. Here's the website. Step 5. Create a priority list. Using the list you originally created, now prioritize these choices. Which are the ones that, should something happen right now, would sustain your family? These are the foods you're going to stockpile first. Step number 6. Now check out the most economical ways to purchase them. Review all of your choices: the local grocery store, local outdoor supply stores, big box stores, online websites. Choose the ones you feel most comfortable dealing with. Step number 7. Find hidden and, if necessary, inventive storage locations. This may be a bit tricky. You want to store these supplies so they aren't seen by visitors and are not underfoot, but at the same time, you want them immediately accessible during an emergency. Now, we're not asking for a lot here, are we? Congratulations, you're done, and it only took 7 easy steps. $5 a day, 5 secrets to stockpiling foods on a budget. Stockpiling food might seem a bit expensive to you, even extravagant, when you may already be just making your normal food budget by the essentials now. You probably don't even want to think about how much it would cost to accumulate a stash that would last 3 months to a year. What if you could accrue your food over a relatively short period of time for, let's say, approximately $5 a day? Would you be willing to give it a try? That's right. You can start today with just $5. No, that $5 will not buy you a month's supply of food for a family of 4, but it will get you started. Any step towards the process is good. Starting with the first $5. Actually using this $5 a day plan, you can store enough food for your family in just about 30 days. After you tuck it in your storage locations, then you can sit back, At least before you need to start rotating your supplies, knowing that should a disaster strike, your family will be eating well. You'll want to start off by purchasing staples that are easy to prepare, including rice, pasta, and romaine noodles. Yes, they are both cheap and filling. In fact, do this for about a week or so, depending on your family's eating habits. You'll be amazed at how quickly these foods accumulate. The second segment of your $5 a day excursion would be at least 5 days of purchasing containers of water. When you finish the week of water buying, return to buying foods that are quick and easy to fix as well as nutritious. Be sure to expand your choices. You'll want to have a variety of food on hand. How to pull this plan off. Tip number 1, buy an item on every grocery visit. No, you really don't need to make an extra trip to the grocery store every day just to buy these items. But every time you do visit the store, buy one item that costs approximately $5. Sometimes you can get packs of ramen noodles for as low as 5 individual servings for $1. If you buy 5 on one trip, you've already stockpiled 25 servings of noodles. You'll be amazed how quickly a simple $5 purchase adds to your cash. Tip number 2, brand names? Not necessarily. Sure, there are times when the brand name products are better quality than off-brands. In some instances, the off-brands are every bit as tasty and nutritious. The point is that you're stockpiling food for an emergency. You really shouldn't be as concerned about buying a well-known name as you are about merely having enough supplies to last. Tip number 3, can your own foods. Even if you grow just a small garden, you can take some of the produce and can it. If you take the cost of canning supplies and divide it among the number of jars you're canning, you really see how economical it is. You can also find canning paraphernalia inexpensively at discount stores or even at flea markets and swap meets. If you buy this material over a period of time, your cost per day will fall well within the $5 a day range. Don't know how to can? Contact your local extension service. They'll have literature and perhaps even free classes to teach you. Just about every major state university has an extension service. Tip number 4, reviving the fine art of couponing. If you've been watching television lately, you're probably already one step ahead on this tip. Couponing, once widely popular in the 1980s, has made a comeback. Today, it's called extreme couponing. While you don't have to go wild, paying a little attention to coupons has the potential to save you big bucks. With a careful read of Sunday newspaper advertising supplements, coupon advertising publications mailed to your house, and online coupon sites, you can reduce your stockpiling costs. All you really need to do is plan ahead some. First, check out all of your grocery store flyers for your stores this week. Discover where the good prices are on the foods you're interested in. Then, check to see if you have coupons to match those purchases. You'll want to get organized. Consider clipping coupons for food items you know your family could use in an emergency. Store these in a recipe box or a wallet-like accessory. Then, not only do you know for sure you have them, but you can take them along. Should you find any items on sale that weren't in the flyer or hadn't originally thought about buying, you are prepared. You simply pull the coupon out of your holder. Tip number 5, search the most unorthodox places. This may sound crazy to you, but if you're stockpiling on a $5 a day budget, then you may want to consider, well, Craigslist. It's the site where you can find just about anything for sale, including sometimes bulk foodstuffs. Of course, you have to be careful about what it is exactly you buy. You really don't want to take a chance on foods that you suspect somebody else has tampered with. But what if you could buy 5-gallon unopened bucket of wheat berries cheap? You may also be able to find canned foods or other foods. If the item you're interested in costs more than $5, consider it a purchase that qualifies for 2 days of buying. While you're on Craigslist, why not hop over to eBay? People have made amazing discoveries of inexpensive food stuff. In fact, it would probably be a good use of your time if you surf the web in general. You may want to search for such keywords as inexpensive food, emergency food supplies, or even stockpiling food cheap. You'll never know where that may lead you. Yes, accumulating an emergency supply of food can be daunting, but only if you let it. If you break the process down into its simplest foods, then you can easily, if slowly, acquire the foods that may very well save your family from starving during a disaster. Recap. Number 1. Need to stockpile food fast? Think inner aisles of your grocery store where you can find the foods with the longest shelf life. 2. Should an impending disaster loom and you need to accrue a quick stash, don't hesitate to shop online for necessary items and even pay for rush shipping if necessary. 3. When choosing a storage site, search for a cool, dry, and dark place to help keep your stash from spoilage or infestation of insects. 4. Rotating your stockpile also helps to ensure freshness and save the dry goods from being infested with insects. 5. Store your cash out of sight from visitors to minimize the potential of looting. Good storage locations include closets, under the beds, the utility room, and under the stairs. 6. When purchasing your stock, be sure to include nutrition-rich foods, especially raisins, peanut butter, apples, carrots, and eggs. 7. Before you even make one purchase, decide on the number of people you will need to feed during a disaster. Keep the number to a bare minimum. 8. To avoid stressing your budget, buy one $5 item each time you go grocery shopping. 9. Canning foods is an economical way to create a healthy stockpile. 10. Use cents off coupons when you can. Those pennies add up quickly.